Hello, and thank you for your interest in this project planning template. My name is Jacob Pliviyama. I am the Disaster Program Specialist for the once Greater Phoenix chapter, but currently Central Northern Arizona chapter as of May of 2020. Specifically, I cover the Central Arizona territories, which include Maricopa, Gila, and Pinal counties. While this slide also introduces my volunteer partner, Chris Wise, this recording is a follow-up from a presentation that we did together about this template on May 15th. As such, she is not going to be joining for this tutorial on how to use this template, but hopefully I can give all the great information that my amazing volunteer partner was able to input on that original presentation. So once again, I want to thank you for your interest, and let's go ahead and go over what we shared that day. So what exactly is this project planning template? Well, as you know, as a DPX, our job can be quite chaotic at times, especially with all the different activities that we oversee and projects that we manage. It can be quite burdensome trying to train all of our different volunteers, letting them know exactly what we want, the outcome that we're trying to achieve, especially with such a high turnaround of volunteers. You know, they're just here putting in however much time they want. There's not any sort of mandate on them, and they enjoy that freedom. But it does make things difficult on us that I have seen us get into the mindset that, you know what, if I just have to keep on retraining a volunteer time and time again, I don't have the time, I have to do X, Y, and Z right after this. It's just easier for me to do it myself. And ultimately, that just makes things more difficult on us, takes away time from us, versus if we were to engage volunteers and let them take over these projects. So this tool is a hope that we can make that a lot easier and make our projects a little bit more automatic and engage those volunteers, give them the opportunity to get involved with our mission and drive these projects for us. So this tool, I like to joke that it's a step-by-step project recipe book. Just like any sort of meal recipe book, it has all the essential parts of like ingredients, step-by-step what you need to do, how it should look, what you should get out of that recipe at the end. This organizes complex or long projects, sets expectations right at the beginning, explain the why of projects, describe the outcomes that need to be taken from the different projects, and it is customizable to any project that you can possibly imagine. Hopefully this will empower your volunteers to take leadership on these projects and just follow this recipe to achieve the outcomes that you're trying to attain, get a little bit more time back to your day. A little bit of a history on this project planner and how it kind of came to be. My manager, disaster program manager, Lindsay Matheson, she was looking for ways that we can create a SOP or something that we can give to volunteers and then just check in on them on a regular basis uh, to see the progress on how these projects are coming and get a little bit of time back to our day. Her background was working in the uh, social services industry, and they always had to write up these grant proposals of the different projects they were hoping to attain, the steps that they were going to do in order to achieve those uh, projects, why the impact that they're hoping to achieve, why they're actually doing it. And I took some of those uh, templates and tried to melt it down into the most basic of needs or basic elements so that anyone could easily just pick it up, read it, and go from there without very much oversight at all. Maybe just a few like quick check-ins and letting people know the best practice or a little bit of ideas. But even those are kind of addressed in this template to make it easier. Uh, I worked with our fundraising team, Megan Bronner. We kind of did like a search going over a bunch of different templates on Pinterest to put this together, and it really has made a huge difference. If we take a look at the next slide, we can kind of see the impacts that this Project Planner has done for at least our chapter, and hopefully we'll be able to do the same for you. Now, here we see the different benefits that our chapter was able to see when implementing this template. I will be honest, when I wrote this template, it was only that autopilot management that was my goal, where when I was away from the chapter, whether it be deployment, PTO, or just the weekends, I still want the workforce to know what needs to get done and be able to accomplish that without me having to be there right by their side. I want them to, empower the volunteers to work on these different projects, and maybe just call me if they needed a quick clarification, but that I can focus on what I need to get done when away from the chapter. And this has had a great benefit in doing so. I've had to use it a few times where we created just a few steady state activities that people can get involved in, like our casework referral resource list. I created a whole project plan. That's actually the main example that we'll be going over today. We also did it for smoke alarm installation requests, like signing it into the portal, a few different small projects inside the chapter, like organizing how to get that all taken care of. And then we've also had a few other bigger things, which my volunteer partner ended up taking the lead on and creating, which leads me to the next point that I didn't intend, but was a wonderful benefit that came out of this template, which is leadership empowerment. Since you and the volunteers are using the same language, the same tools to put these projects together, it makes it a lot easier for volunteers to create their own projects. And then they can just submit it to you, review it together, and you give the approval whether or not you think that's a good idea and to follow through on it. And that gives the ownership to the volunteer at that point. Chris Weiss, my volunteer partner, put together a few different projects about surveying caseworkers, checking in on how they were doing, how they have been developing, whether they were happy with the progress or not, and a way of training up new volunteers, including supervisors, that I just check in and see what the milestones, how she wants me to monitor progress. And that's been going incredibly well and very smoothly, knowing that we're looking at a task from the same point of view. We didn't have to spend a whole 1 or 2 hour meeting to go over everything that we want to accomplish and have her like kind of explain everything. She was able to just send me a template, especially because my volunteer partner and we don't physically see each other very often. She just wrote it up and then emailed me the template, and I was able to review it that way. So it made things a lot easier for that communication, which brought me to the final benefit. This helped with improved collaboration. It's a lot easier to get feedback for any project because you don't have to schedule a physical meeting or even a phone call. You can just review the project plan together on whatever times work best. And it makes it a lot easier to engage more people on the same project as well on different schedules, that they just submit feedback when you're trying to implement it. And then when it's actually ongoing, different volunteers on different schedules can, what I've done is I have a folder in the office where I keep the different ongoing projects, and they'll just, when they have free time, go into that folder, look at one, and just, kind of get to work. We can also email this out to different people that we think would be involved in projects, and then just check in with them based off of what the milestones are. Volunteers mark when certain steps are completed, and any other volunteer can pick up where they leave off. It has been made my job a lot easier with that continuous service. So hoping that you can get it done yourself. So that's a lot of benefits, but I want to go over how we actually broke down this template and how you can actually use it. So let's take a look here. All right, here we have the Project Planner template homepage, which I do want to explain that I actually have 2 different versions of this template. One is a Word document, which is incredibly easy to customize, but not as easy to actually use, meaning that You can make it as big or long as you want. You just copy and paste how many different uh, additions you want onto it. Like if you want multiple task planners, you just copy that sheet and paste it and just add on how many steps that you want to put onto it. However, that does mean that you kind of have to reformat it every time that you do so. And if you want to add like different things to like an appendix or an addition to it, you know, you can do so. It's really easy. You copy and paste it, but then you have to reformat the document to make sure that everything lines up. So that's not as easy to implement. However, there is another version, which is a PDF file, which is a form really. So it's incredibly easy to use that you just, you know, it's basically plug and play. You go to every different section that you want to put in information on, fill it out as necessary. It lets you type, and I've tested it out, works out perfectly. But being a PDF form, you can't customize it. You're basically stuck with how that form looks. You can't really add anything to it. It just has 3 pages, the home page, the task planner, and a separate task list. So that one's great if you just have like a very short project that you're trying to explain, but not really advisable for anything more complex. Take a look, see whatever you like, but I'm going to break down the different elements of this planner so that you can make a choice of whichever is going to be the best fit for you and know how to fill it out and use it properly. So first, we have the actual project details, very important, obviously. Of course, you're going to want to put a name to it, just say what it actually is. And then for the type, add in the category. This allows volunteers to find out if this is the right project that they want to get involved in. It's a great way at targeting specific audiences. For example, if it's a casework project, and you put in recovery, caseworker will see, okay, this is a recovery project. This is something that I'm interested in. Let me read a little bit further. So it's basically like, think of it as the synopsis on the back of a book, letting people know, okay, this is something that I do want to get involved in, just immediately right out the gate. Then we have the start date, pretty self-explanatory when you want to start the actual project. And then you have the end date and due date, which I have defined differently. Due date being when the project deliverables are actually needed, versus the end date when the project itself will end. So sometimes there is no end date and you can put continuous. It's something that is just going to keep on going, but you'll still have a due date of when, you know, the different deliverables need to be in by. For example, home fire campaign with the service acknowledgement forms. You're going to want to have that in before the end of the fiscal year, so make sure that these are submitted before the end of June. But then you don't have an end date; it's continuous. On other hand, for example, with casework, you may have a putting in all the different referrals into CAS, but we know that CAS is going to change. We're going to be using a new system in the future. So you may have an end date of whenever CAS is no longer going to be used, but you still have the same due date for the deliverables. You're still going to want that in on an annual basis. So that's just a way that you can differentiate and make it specific to your project. Next, we have the objective. So this is where you actually define the deliverables. What do you want out of this project? Try to make it as specific as possible. It's great to use SMART goals, making them specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely if you can. But definitely make it specific so that of any volunteer, even a volunteer that doesn't know you, can just go ahead and read this and find out, okay, I know what I'm doing. I need to get this out. It also helps to kind of put in like the bumpers to the project as well. Like if you design this to be naturally flexible, this just tells us, okay, this is what I'm trying to achieve. I can go, if the tasks don't fit it perfectly, maybe something has changed since the project planner was designed, I still know what I'm trying to achieve out of this. So it gives a guidepost there. Next, we have the background information. And this is where I've actually stolen straight out of a grant proposal. This is where you explain the why. What is the impact that you're trying to make? What is the background to the project? Is the problem you're trying to solve? And how is it supposed to be doing it? Why should volunteers care? Alternatively, you can also change this into being more of a notes and brainstorming section. I use this project planner also with our chapter's interns, where I encourage them to create their own project plan for different uh, uh, preparedness activities that they want to get involved in, and I have them write out a proposal of how they want to accomplish it. And is because they don't have as much background information, it is very normal for them to use this instead as a brainstorming section, kind of mapping out what sort of things will be needed, how they're going to achieve it, and just kind of think it through a little bit. This also allows me, when I review their proposal, to see their work, essentially, see how they got to the outcome that they did. So find out what works best for you and your volunteers. I've used it both ways and it's been excellent. Next, the supplies and resources. I like to, since we're going back to that analogy that this is like a recipe book, this would be the ingredients part of the recipe. So a volunteer has read the details, found out, okay, this looks like it pertains to me. They read the objective, understands what they're supposed to get out of it, and then they read the background information and understands why it's so important. They're like, okay, this is definitely what I want to get involved into. What do I need to be successful? What do I need to get started? Make sure that I have all these different ingredients. What do I need to, go to my DPX or the grocery store and order before I get started on this? These are all the tools that a volunteer should have in place in order to be successful in the project. This could just be, point of contact of who to refer to, a supervisor on the task. It could be certain systems they have to have access to in order to do it. Or it could just be like a resource list or some other, printout or physical item that they need to have available to them. They should get these stuff, refer to this section and get all of that in place before they start the rest of the project. Next, we have the milestones. This is where the project manager, often the DPX, will be using these different milestones and dates to monitor the progress. I say the best practice is once you've outlined what the different milestones are going to be, start setting calendar reminders for those dates to follow up with whoever is managing this and who to check in with the different workforce involved to ensure that everything's progressing, or if there's like some sort of shared document that you're working on, to review the progress on that document together and see if you need to get more involved, if you need to change your strategy. Just review the efficiency of the project and see you're on task. Which actually gets us down to the different tasks. These are the actual steps that need to be completed to fulfill the project. Don't worry about explaining this. There is a separate page, which I'm going to go over next, that actually details how to complete those different tasks. This is just an overview. Remember, this is the home page. Kind of think of it as the directory of the project. So don't worry too much about explaining it. That comes when we do the next slide. So here we get to the actual task planner. You'll notice there's a lot of similar elements as to the home page, but this is where we break down individual steps, explain how to accomplish them. So we still have the details, same little bits of information. One thing that is added is importance, adds priority, what needs to absolutely get done first, or you can even put it as optional. I have a lot of different projects that have optional steps that are more for like aesthetics. Like if I want something to look pretty, I'll add a little task of how to do that, and then just say it's an optional. Like if you have time, this would be appreciated, but I'm not going to mandate it. Then we have the task. This outlines the objective once again. What are the deliverables of this task? Again, this is also best to use those SMART goals. But when we actually get down to the goals, this becomes the new bumpers within which you operate within. Again, this is adding an element of flexibility and creative problem solving, because as brilliant as we all are, there's no possible way that we're going to uh, foresee every single different outcome that comes up. Uh, so this just allows us to better focus in what are the different goals of this task, what is the purpose that we're trying to achieve. It just highlights that task before the deliverables, and better communicates what we're trying to achieve, so that volunteers can uh, overcome problems and obstacles that are bound to show up during the project. Next, we get to the ideas and notes section. So this is a place where you can add in little tips, best practices, words of caution, or maybe contact information for this task. This person is a great resource to use. Contact them at this information. Uh, Really, anything that you can already plan on being a shortfall, this is your opportunity to fix it now, before volunteers run into that issue and then start hounding you down for, oh, okay, I'm running into this problem. How do I solve it? This is your opportunity to fix that before it becomes an issue. And next, we actually get down to the specific steps. Note that the last column is a completion date field. This allows collaboration between different volunteers. So as one finishes a step, the next one can look into it and say, okay, I know this next step needs to get done. Everything else was completed beforehand. Really allows that seamless progress to go forward. And then, of course, add any supplemental documents as needed. This is a great template, but like any good template, you want to be able to adjust it to better fit your needs. This can be done in one of two ways. You can either, in the different action steps, reference Appendix A and just add an appendix at the very end that people will refer back to. I like to just reference the title of the supplemental document and then copy and paste it right after this task planner page. So it kind of reads like a book, but definitely use it however makes best sense to you. I've used it both ways, and both ways have been successful. Now then, with that all explained, all the different elements, I want to go over an example of how I've put this together to see a little bit more clearly how it's used, and hopefully that should make things a little bit easier for you as well. So like I said at the beginning, I want to use our resource directory improvement project plan as our example. You can see here that I've added the type efficiency, just making sure that this is a way that like improving efficiency programs. I probably should put recovery there as well, recovery efficiency. But this was my very first project plan, so I'm seeing now there's something that I've changed even during the scope of using this. Objective, we want to improve the resource directories, providing better information to clients for their recovery as well as the ease to use the tool. So we got what they're supposed to be getting out of it. And then a little bit of the background information, why it's so important, that people rely on us to give them accurate details to make their lives easier. In the supplies resources, I want caseworkers to be able to use Google. We have a local casework SharePoint. If someone's reading this project and didn't know what that SharePoint was, that would be a great indicator to say, hey, Jacob, this says I need access to a casework SharePoint. Do you know what that is? And I can get them access to it. Resource directory, the form that they're actually going to be fulfilling, all the different tools there. And milestones, I've put a due date for different months. So I've checked in May this month to see that all the current resources are verified. I'll go over what that looks like in a moment of just how I referenced it. And then have in August, October, December, all these different milestones that I'm going to be checking in on this progress. And then on the home page, I only have 3 tasks. It looks very simple. about verifying these resources, expanding resources, and updating resources. Very cut and dry, not a much explanation. It seems very vague and abstract, and that's okay. Next, when we get to the actual task, is where I explain a little bit more. So, task, verify resources. This is from that. So I almost exactly quoted the homepage when I wrote this task to make it very easy what I'm referencing. Put in the new objective of what I'm trying to get out of this task, and the goals that volunteers are supposed to be focusing on, making sure that the information is correct, that the resources are comfortable with us sharing their information, it's easy to understand for caseworkers, and that it's a universal format so that we're all speaking the same language. And ideas and notes, I've put a few different best practices. I told them to refer to the verification checklist, and that when you're speaking with someone from the agency, make sure that the person doing so is knowledgeable about the resources, because we ran into issues with people at the front desk trying to give information about their program, but they actually only had very tentative information on it, and it wasn't the best use of our time. So asking that question at the very beginning, like, hey, how well knowledgeable are you on this area? If they say, oh, I just started last week. Can I speak with a supervisor, someone that could give me more information, that sort of thing. And then on the task, the steps, this is where it's a lot more specific into every single different action that needs to be completed, and more of an explanation. Then right after this page, I added the verification checklist, so they didn't have to run and look for a different document. It's all in the same document. They just read it over. Just note that because I was going to have 3 different tasks, I copy and pasted the task planner. I had to, reformat the document so that this was all blank, so that the next task planner was starting at the very beginning. So let's take a look there. So now we have the next task, which is just expanding the resources. Again, I've added the task, the deliverable that I'm trying to get out, the bumpers, the goals that we're operating within. Didn't need many different ideas or notes for this one. Instead, just got down to the specific action steps. And it refers to the resource directory. So this is a separate document because this is the actual deliverable that we're all working on together. You can see that there's the verified list that checks off when they've completed each step and what date, so that another volunteer can just get right into it and pick up where they left off. Has the different details of how to fulfill this and what they're actually supposed to be getting out of it. Next, we have the final task, which is the most complicated. It gave us the biggest headache trying to figure out how to do this. And this is adding those resources into CAS. Once again, we have the task and the bumper goals to operate within. And now for the action steps, we've listed out every single one. And this is where I use that extended task planner. This is the very last page in the template, which is rare to use, but it's very helpful when you have those very long and complicated tasks and you want to break it down to every single different step that needs to be taken. So it just adds a lot more space, and copy and paste however many times you need to use it. This is how I did it to add it into CAS. So hopefully with that overview, you're able to take this template, fiddle around with it, explore it more on your own, and adapt some of your own projects to that template and give it out to your volunteers. Maybe teach some of your volunteers how to use it, and together start coming up with some great and excellent projects. Hopefully in the future, if we're all working on different templates and putting together these projects, we can share these with each other and just build off the shoulders of giants, so to speak, and not constantly reinvent the wheel. Hopefully this will give us all more time back to our days to spend on coming up with more creative solutions to the world's problems. Of course, remember to put on your oxygen mask first, take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. All right, thank you so much, and I hope this helps all of you in the future. Take care.